I could be driving back now after this, like back home, and to come into my head, and it just gets you, like, because when I see a picture, I want to give him a hug or a kiss or shake his hand or have a chat with him, and that'll never happen again. But that's the way it is. But you're right, it hits you at the strangest of times. Mammy said, that's the best steak you've ever done. And he'd wink at me. You know, it's all playing the game. He could play the game. So Mammy was as happy as she was delighted. A parent has no problem paying €150 for a helmet. Why not pay €100 to get your son screened or daughter screened? Like,
everyone should be screened. It's not just you're kind of thinking just because Dillon is associated with GA, you think every GA, but it's everyone. Like.
Oh, everyone, yeah, it's everybody.
Even the stories, you going into the neighbours with and food and all.
That's right. It was great. He was great. Himself and the buddies actually. They had a bit of a bear going to the back of a van to go, but used to come around. Some very funny stories. They were very good. And you know, the kind of fella Dillon was, he'd mix with anybody. The first night we were over, we met 5 guys from Scotland who were Rangers supporters, and they were in their 70s. Now we're Celtic supporters, I guess, you know. But,
Welcome to another episode of Everyday is a School Day, the podcast that explores the hot topics in Irish education. This week we will have a special focus on the incredible work of the Dillon Quirke Foundation. So I don't have to I just have to mention Stakelums as well. We'll welcome back Des again, we'll say, because it's always great to have Des. And Des, the way this generally works is I introduce you and then Des comes in with a really good question because his listening skills are absolutely fantastic. And we discussed this off air as well. And when I say that, I mean it wholeheartedly as well, because I think I was so encouraged by Des's questioning. We were afraid I was over the top, but Des's questioning is great, and his play, his back that I thought was a musical for 1 week, and Paddy really emphasised that I was completely wrong on air as well, but I forgot all about that. So today we're delighted to have Dan Quirke here as well, and to talk about the Dillon Quirke Foundation as well. Would you maybe kind of give us a brief insight maybe of the overall mission statement or the aim of the foundation?
Sure, look, ideally when we started the foundation we probably didn't know where we were going, but through the work we've done over the last couple of years, through the funds we've raised, we have a mandate, and the mandate is to make it mandatory with all sporting bodies within Ireland. It's probably a big ask, but with the work we're doing, we feel we have a great chance of getting there, with the support not just of the GA, which we probably started as a GA foundation, but quickly realised that all sports wanted to be involved. So that's a big help to us when we do happen to go to government, that we're ready, and the work that's going on has been very successful. So look, we want to make it mandatory that you cannot play sport unless you're heart screened.
And I suppose to maybe listeners that haven't heard about the work as well, I suppose we're all very au fait with it as well, we'll say, about that screening. Could you maybe tell us a small bit more of how?
Yeah, sure. Look, what we do is we heart screen basically. So if this club here, like Ballyporeen, any club wants to be screened, they'll contact the Dillon Quirke Foundation. We work with a company called Advanced Medical Services in Cork. They do the screening for us. What happens is a club will contact the foundation. The foundation will contact AMS. AMS will send out a questionnaire to the parents of the kids that want to be screened. The questionnaire is the family history, if there's any issues in the past, or whatever the case may be. At that stage, then it goes back to AMS. An appointment is made. The young individual comes to the screening on the day, be it wherever it's on. There's an ECG done. There's a doctor, a nurse, and a receptionist there. The ECG is done. The history has gone through with the doctor. All the information goes back to the AMS, and their cardiologists take it from there. And if there's an issue, then the next step is taken.
Excellent. And in terms of logistics as well, in terms of getting in contact as well, is there various different outreaches in different parts of the country, or how to go about it?
No, look, thankfully since we started, we've screened in the 26 counties.
Yes.
So we screen in everything, which is great. So when we want to fundraise, wherever we go, at least we can say we have screened within that particular county. But no, once they contact the foundation, we 2 girls are working with myself on that. They'd contact the clubs and it's taken from there. But it's countrywide, which is great.
Brilliant. And I think I suppose it's important, I suppose, to start with the great work as well, and we'll move on as well to how people can support the brilliant work that's been happening at the moment as well.
Yeah, look, without the funding that's happening all over the country, we wouldn't exist. Yeah. And we have so many different fundraisers going on. Like this week alone, we'll take Glitz and Groove did a fashion show before Christmas, raised 20,000. I'm going to Maruboher on Friday night. They did a tractor run last summer. They raised 15,000. There's a coffee morning in Holy Cross on Saturday. The girls are at the Abbey. That'll be another fundraiser. Like I could go on and on and on. Just, and it's all over the country. Like, I was in UCC last Thursday for a talk. We're now a charity partner with UCC for the year. We were in Croke Park the week before. The GA had met as a partner. So look, this is happening all over the country. So it's great. But people know how serious it is, and that without the funds we can't screen.
Yes.
Would you mind letting us know a little bit about how you went from such a tragedy to the initiative to set up the foundation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. When Dillon passed, we were lost, literally lost, as any parent will know. People have been great, obviously, to us, but to understand when you lose a child, words can't explain it. And as good as people are, they are great. Unless someone has lost a child, they don't really understand it. And it's so difficult to explain that to anybody. And the support has been tremendous. But we were numb for weeks on end as to why this happened and can we do anything about it to make sure that other parents wouldn't go through the same thing. That's where we come up with some kind of a foundation. We want to remember Dillon for all the great work he had done in his short life, in his 24 years. And I suppose we looked at setting up some kind of a foundation to raise awareness of sudden adulthood syndrome. And that's how we started, really. It was a remembrance of Dillon and to see could we help other parents going forward.
And at a time of grief, to find a purpose like that must have been some help with the grief, I know.
There's no question for me, the foundation is amazing because it's a way out for me, and it's definitely helping my grieving process. I do think it with Hazel and the two girls it's more difficult because it's in your face all the time. And I suppose the girls would like to step back a little bit, and so does Hazel, because it's non-stop with the foundation. But for me personally, it's without it I'd be lost, and I mean that. And the fact that it's been such a success and we're making such an impact is great. But yeah, for me, it's a huge help in my grieving process. There's no doubt about it.
And going from the idea then to actually making it happen, how did you actually make it happen?
I suppose a conversation with Niall Quinn. I'm very friendly with Niall, and Niall is the chairperson of our board. And Niall has a lot of experience of this in the past number of years, and we just spoke about it. How could we do something? Set up a foundation, raise awareness. So Niall came in as, we set up a board then very quickly. Declan Ryan, our own Declan Ryan, Declan Gleeson, Simone, who worked with the FAI, she's with us as well in Dublin. So we've a board of 5 or 6. That was critical to get a good board behind you. And then we went from there. We have a manager in now, Becky Bristow, who's our manager of the foundation. Tremendous lady, keeps us all on our toes, makes sure our governance is in place, which is so important. It took us 9 months to get our registration over with the charity regulator. So I suppose when we started with good people. Then we have an advisory board of who's who in sport, be it GA or rugby, all over the country. And these people are winners. And when you have good people behind you, you have a great chance of success.
Were there, when you think the idea of this foundation, and you were probably thinking, want to do something to remember Dillon, were there other ideas in your head, or how did you fix on?
No, absolutely no other ideas, because look, obviously we'll never forget him, but realistically you want other people not to forget him as well. Yeah. And his friends were very good because they've been very good since it all happened. And he was such a pillar in society in both Clonody and Tipperary. Anyone that'll know will tell you that, and we'll probably go through it later. But no, it was always sudden adult. It was always why he died or what happened and how can we help other people. And that's the main reason we started it.
When you're talking about Dillon, like Dillon he played for kind of Tip. Did he come through the academy and all that the whole way up?
Yeah, he started at the 13s and 15s and 16s and 17s all the way up. Played hurling and football actually for a while, but stopped the football as it got more serious. Played rugby as a young fella too with Kilfeacle. He just loved sport, but yeah, he came all the way up through the different groups, which was great, and had friends all the way up, which was a big help to him when they went on to win a minor and a 20.
So he was a serious kind of an athlete.
Yeah, he was a good athlete, yeah, he was. Always looked after himself very well.
And when did it come about that he had a heart condition? Was that
2018 was the first time it happened. He was working with H&B Engineering, who have been very good to us going forward, to be fair, in the last number of months and a couple of years. He worked as a high voltage electrician, and he was in Cork one day after work, and he rang his mum Hazel to say he wasn't feeling well. He was driving home, he wasn't feeling well, and he stopped and got sick. And Hazel said, look, Dillon, get home as quick as you can and we'll try and get it sorted. So he got home. This was, I'd say, October 2018, and came home and was feeling very well and went up to bed. Maybe half an hour later he called Hazel and said, I'm feeling very dizzy. So we went up, Hazel and myself, and literally he fell into my hands. And he went down. If I put him onto the bed, he was as white as a sheet, and we rang 999 and the ambulance came out and I gave him a couple of things, but he'd been out for a little while and he went to Clonmel Hospital then, and he was there for maybe 24, 48 hours, but that night the same thing happened to him in the hospital. So that's how it started in 2018. He didn't play for a while then. He was with a consultant in Limerick, Dr. Clark. He didn't play any sport then for 6 months. We had just won the county senior hurling final, which was great, and he'd won an under-21 All-Ireland final, and we were in the county under-21 club final as well, and he missed the final, which devastated him. Okay. Absolutely devastated, but thankfully we won, beating Sarsfields, Thurles, without Dillon, which was great. But
and did you have any answers at that point, Dan, as to what was going on?
No, we didn't have enough answers, not really, no. Yeah. But things like, he was being monitored with Tipperary, and he was being monitored with Dr. Clark every 3 to 6 months, and things died down and he was fine. So, no, everything seemed to be going great. And look, we'll probably speak more about it later. Like, he played every minute of the championship for Tipperary in 2022, the year he passed. When the intensity, he had a great year, when the intensity was at its highest. Yeah. He came back to the club then and next things happens. You just don't know. Yeah. It's a secret killer, sudden adult death syndrome. Secret killer.
And it certainly wasn't because of neglect or not being tested in certain ways or anything like that.
No, there was certainly no, there wasn't any neglect. No. And he was actually going to a specialist to follow on Tuesday or Wednesday after the match with Killer One. No,
so
he was obviously aware of it.
As you say.
Yeah, he probably felt, we'll never get to the bottom of this, as he felt like. This is never going to end, was his feeling, and all he wanted to do was play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's interesting though, I suppose. The intensity at championship level, actually, it's just something like that.
Yeah, the intensity at its highest in Munster Championship. You think you like, you know, when the blood is flowing and you really have to come back and play the club, it didn't happen then. So it's just very hard to explain it. And possibly in our situation, there are no answers. We were told it afterwards that when Dillon hit the ground, he was gone and there was no coming back. Now we worked with him for 40 minutes under the stand and down to Peter Merchant in the hospital in Clonmel, but he never came back. Like, he was gone. Look, it was a beautiful way for Dillon to pass in Semple Stadium, but for everybody left behind, it was devastating.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you're doing now is you're keeping his legacy alive.
Yeah, well, actually we are. Yeah, it is great to keep his legacy alive because he's on my shoulder the whole time, telling me, "Come on, you've got to do this, and you've got to make it successful." And if ever I'm feeling down and I want a break, when he's saying, "Come on," he'd call me Dan. It wasn't Dad. He's always with me, and he'd say, "Look, this has to happen. We're saving lives. You've got to keep going and make it mandatory and get there." So without him, I suppose I wouldn't be able to do it, to be honest.
I'll never forget that evening when we kind of heard it. It was like, what? It was like, I think everyone's stomach kind of sank, like, because as you said, like, I'd been to all the tip matches that year, and I can remember in below against Waterford down in Welch Park, what a game he had that day. Like, it was just kind of, Jesus, this couldn't be after happening. And a couple of my friends then, one of my friends was umpire that night, and he just rang me that night. He was an absolute bits, like.
Yeah.
Do you know, and you think of Craig and
that's it, sure. Look,
you know, but what I felt then was like, just because he was such a nice lad, and the GA community just kind of came in around.
That was amazing. That was amazing. Like, even
the whole thing, like,
at his removal, it was the day before the wake, I suppose you want to call it, at home. It started at 12 and it finished at 12. It was 12 hours. And there was thousands of people. And word got out very quick, and clubs came from all over the country with 11 number of his club jersey. That was just amazing. Like, you'd have full club teams from all over Munster and Ireland coming. Like, it's just amazing. Everybody wearing 11 jersey. It was all about the jerseys, and it just goes to show what the GA community are about, lads.
And it's such an awful time. People think there's nothing they can do to help, but yet it was some form.
It was some form of solace, because they were amazing. We just, like, the people that came to it. You know, Micheál Murty came down from Dublin to the funeral, and the queue was 4 hours long, and he wouldn't leave the queue. He went to the queue. You know, amazing. Like, he didn't want to skip the queue. Lord have mercy on the man, but just to show that when GA come together, we can probably do anything. You know,
it's a great point though, about, you know, at times like this, you know, at an outside, people might know the best thing to do, we'll say, but the number 11, you know, it meant so much.
It did. It was a great thing to do. They were great.
I suppose even just their presence of being there.
All the lads came out. Obviously his own club mates, but the tip team came out the day before, and they gave hours there sitting down, telling us stories about Dillon. Some I couldn't repeat here. But
He'd just been on a holiday as well, hadn't he?
yeah, just come back from
Boys.
holiday. I was telling him on a holiday. He had a great time.
Yeah.
Did a great time. But a lot of stories told. And sure, Dillon was he was a great man for the crack and having fun in sports. You know, he was always playing jokes on his mother and playing jokes with me if he could. And sure, Hazel would be feeding him. You know, he'd be home for dinner nearly every day. And whenever to be on any, I'd say to Hazel, it was a steak on today. She'd say, God, Mammy says, that's the best steak you've ever done. And he'd wink at me. You know, it was all playing the game. Like, he could play the game. So Mammy was as happy as she was delighted. Like. And come home, then she might have a steak for a month, and then that was the best steak again. He was winking to me again. This went on all the time. Like. She's all the time playing jokes on Hazel, and Hazel would have a fear for mice. And she'd be on about mice to the whole thing. And it was up on TikTok, different ones, and all the stuff he did to her. Like, but sure, she really enjoyed it. And she misses him amazing. So his personality in ways is very like Hazel, because he was really gentle, you know, gentle away from the field, and he had a lovely way about him. And sure, all his friends were mad about him because he was probably a leader in his own right too, you know. And even Colin Bonner spoke about him being a future tip captain. He was captain of our club team that year, and you know they played Nina Championship before the Kilruan match, and he didn't have a good game. He played fine, but on his own standards, and he came back to me and said, I cannot wait for Kilruan, he said. And he was just so eager, even that day going out, I'm going to make sure today is my day. And sure, he was playing inside again, and he was craving havoc, in fairness to him. But one of the funny stories, he was playing against Kilruan another day, Mark and Craig, and he was full forward on a day, and Craig was centre back, and there was a high ball coming in, and the sun was shining, and Craig couldn't see it, you know. Where is it? He was talking to us. Where is it? Don't worry, Craig, I have it. And he can't, like, I have it, Craig, don't worry. They're kind of fun to have on the pitch, you know. And even you said Waterford, I remember Connor and Craig telling me they both made their debuts with Dillon in Waterford in 22. And they were sitting together. And if you watch some of the photos after it, even on the TV, we saw it. The boys were nervous, you know. And Dillon said, listen, let's just enjoy it. Let's have some fun out here. And you watch him running out onto the pitch, and there's a smile on his face. Like. Yeah. And any of the pictures you'll see of Dillon, there's a smile on his face when he's playing. And that only happened, let's say, from 22 on. For whatever it was, he was able to play with a smile on his face, which is a lovely thing to do, like, because it's very difficult to do. But yeah, he did it that year. So look, it was lovely for Dillon to have that year, you know.
And wonderful to hear you describing him and bringing him, you know, into the room here as we're sitting together. And I suppose I can imagine, as a parent myself, listening, you know, to think of, you know, the life that he lived. And it could be any of our sons, it could be anyone, and I think that's probably important to get that message out to parents.
Well, that is parents need to know, like, we're losing 2 lives a year with sudden adults. It's 2 young lives a week, 100 a year. Now that figure is ridiculous. And I was just thinking about coming up along, they spent 335,000 on a bike shed above the Dáil.
Yeah.
And at 350 creating a cost, that would screen 3,500 young people. Like, it's massive, and the way the money's been wasted. So I know it will be difficult for us to get the government to pass this, to make it mandatory, but if the sporting bodies can get behind it, the government will have to come behind it then, you know, so that's our aim, really.
So screening is
screening is key, because screening is stats.
What age then should they be screened
from?
Well,
we've been told by AMS that from puberty upwards, so 12 or 13 up to 18.
Okay.
Now we might try and narrow that age gap, bring it maybe between 13 and 17 is where it seems to happen most. I think 15 and 16 are actually the 2 years where the issues are happening, you know, mostly. But we're starting from 13 to 18 at the minute. It's probably screened.
I just watched a video clip there where he's gone into clubs and where they are actually showing up. There's defects being shown up in a lot of the screening that you.
Well, of the 10,000,
it could be the smallest little thing, like, but it's a defect.
It's a defect, yeah. And look, when someone knows about it, you have a chance of doing something about it. So we screened over 10,000 last year, and there was 240 referrals which needed to be looked at. And of that, then I think either 15 or 16 had procedures, operations. Now they could be life-saving, guys. Yeah. I'm not saying they are, but in some cases they probably were. And I get calls from parents to thank us for setting up the foundation, say, listen, you saved our daughter's life or son's life. And that's the truth, like. There's a couple of serious cases going on at the minute, one in Tipperary and one in Kerry. That's all I'll say. They're waiting on procedures, and please God, they'll be sorted out. So look, we know we're making an impact, and we know we're saving lives.
The numbers are bigger than I thought in terms. Wow.
That's it.
10,000, like 240.
It's a lot.
It's
a lot.
Like, if we multiply, you know, again.
Well, there you go. So, like, we hope, please God, if we can raise enough funds, we'll screen another 10,000 this year. But to have 20,000 screened and to have them stats going to the sporting bodies and the government, they'd have to stand up and take notice.
So you've gone into a lot of the GA clubs. We'll say, have you gone to other clubs as well?
Well, we've gone, as in sports. Yeah. We've 16 sports we've screened so far.
Okay.
Yeah, and we will screen in every sport, because as more screening is done, more people know about it and they want their clubs. So anything, like obviously we've done soccer, rugby, GA, basketball, golf, dancing.
Yeah.
That's just to name a few. So we have got to all sports, because it's prevalent in all sports. We've got to do that,
And it's just, I suppose, from a teacher point of view in secondary school, myself and Days, I was kind of talking to you about it then. Like, I do a bit of PE, and I suppose you have kids that play sport, and I could see this coming down the line. There is kids that their only bit of activity, physical activity during the week, is that PE class.
Yeah.
So I could see the Dillon Quirke Foundation maybe going into schools in years to come, where you go in and screen those kids, because if they're not physically active as well, there could be a red flag there. Maybe they could be
absolutely,
something.
Yeah. It's our intention actually. We're starting. We started with Thurles CBS last week, is to get round to all the schools, everywhere, not just in Tipperary but all over Munster and Ireland, and we're hoping that the fourth years would do a project on sudden adult death syndrome, that they get as much information out there, but they'd also contact all the parents within the school, and maybe do a little fundraiser. Now it could be that they might design their own jersey for the school, but something like that. But if you can get young kids involved, that's where you need to start.
Yeah.
Because nowadays kids are so well tuned as to what's going on.
Yeah.
Like you get a 15 or 16 year old to know what this is about, to take it back to all the parents. Like, it's just people need to know. 2 young lives a week, people need to know. It could be anybody's son or daughter.
How do you deal with, I suppose, a parent then that would say, like, would say if a school does take it on board, how would you deal with a parent? I don't want to. I don't know. I'm afraid. What if something shows up?
That is an issue, That is an issue. But like, if something shows up, like,
it's better know, isn't it?
Well, as a parent, you've got to do something about it.
Yeah.
So it's essential, really.
Yeah.
Like we have found, particularly with, say, inter-county teams, some of the guys don't want to be screened, because if something is found, they're going to be out. They could be out for 3 months or 6 months, which is a terrible way of looking at it. That's why you need to get parents involved with younger children. So once they're screened, because if you ask a 19-year-old, there's no parent involved when he gets to 19, and he's playing with Tipperary, for argument's sake, or Waterford, whatever the case may be, and he doesn't want to be screened, because he knows, like, if you get an injury now on the 1st of February, we're more or less out of the championship. And so guys are afraid of that. And
getting
also
the screening younger.
I think younger is key. I think it's younger is key, where it's taken out of an adult's choice, yes or no. So that's on our radar, and that's what we hope to do.
And the big thing there is, like, if you are screened and something shows up, there is ways of you can still play sport down the line.
Yeah, well, one particular case early on this year last year was Saoirse Lally was captain of the Mayo football team.
Oh, okay.
Saoirse was screened again through the foundation, and the GPA would been very good, in fairness, about this. Saoirse was screened on a Wednesday. On a Friday, AMS rang her and said, "Listen, you need to contact us." But she didn't bother contacting anyone until she got 3 or 4 phone calls. And the following Wednesday, she said, "Look, I better contact them. Why are they ringing me? I'm fit and here." She was contacting. She had a serious issue. Now, there's a medical term for it, which I don't know. She was screened. There was a problem. She was operated within 3 weeks. She was back playing in the gym within 6 weeks. But in her case, but the greatest thing what she said was, what I thought was normal isn't normal at all. I thought I was normal before this. But she was suffering in ways that weren't normal.
Yeah.
She was always out of breath. Sure, everybody was the same after training. But she didn't know. Now she felt normal.
Yes.
But it's amazing. What is normal?
Yes, somebody's normal.
It's just amazing,
imagine
like.
what she was doing to her body to
That's
train.
exactly it. And then you saw the problems she had, like. And now she's 100% and played with Mayo last year.
I suppose as the phrase goes, we don't know what we don't know, like, so.
No, that's exactly it. Yeah. But look, that's
So
a great
in
story.
her case, she got back playing.
She was back playing.
Wow,
From the time it happened, she was back within 9 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
And parents need to know that, like, that once we know the issue, you can sort the problem out.
Yeah.
And I think Irish people in general, though, in particular Maine, if they have any kind of a symptom, which are to be grand, to be
Put it to the back.
But like you made a great point there, it's a secret killer, because you mightn't even have symptoms.
No.
So that's why the screening is kind of so important, to go and get it done even like without symptoms.
Yeah, and generally, guys, the ones that have no symptoms are the ones that end up, God rest them, gone.
Yeah.
You know, that's unfortunate. So it's about getting the screening done. And look, we'll be looking at new ways of screening, please God, in the future as well, with AI coming on board. make it more affordable maybe, but look, it's just about getting the number screened, because as I said already, when you go to a sporting body or a government, it's all about stats for them, like.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to get done,
And I suppose, how do you envisage then making it mandatory? Is it like, I suppose Garda vetting is mandatory in every club?
Yeah.
Is it like something like that?
Well, I suppose it'd be like, take hurling. You cannot play hurling without a helmet. You cannot play football with a gum shield.
Yeah.
So it's something on them lines that you cannot play unless you're screened. And it'll need help from clubs, and it'll need help from parents. And I suppose it's about starting with one organisation first and getting it mandatory. And we're not really sure yet whether that's GA because it's so big, or it might be a smaller sporting body. We don't know yet, but that's what we're working on at the minute.
Okay, and start with the one and then it spreads out.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But I mean, a parent has no problem paying €150 for a helmet. Why not pay €100 to get your son screened or daughter screened? Like,
just from your point of view, Des, like your son has played at a high level of sport underage. Have you ever thought about it? Like, or when Dillon passed away, did you think about it then, or?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose in my son's case, actually, when he was 6 weeks old, he stopped breathing and he was rushed to the hospital, and they discovered. Thankfully, in our case, things worked out okay, but they discovered a hole in his heart, which I know is quite common. So it was always in our head. And after what happened to Dillon, we did get him screened in Waterford. We went privately, and I suppose it was always in my head, this worry, because he plays so much sport. The relief to know that things were okay was immense. And I suppose for him, he was like, sure, I'm fine. He was dismissing it all the time. But for us as parents, it was always this worry we had. So it was through our GP, and we were referred to a private clinic in Waterford and paid ourselves directly to do that. But absolutely, I think your initiative, I think the foundation is incredible, and I wholeheartedly would support everything that you're doing, and the idea to make it mandatory, the idea to push it out to schools. All of that to me seems like the way to widen it.
I think
the awareness is everything, like.
And even that project, like, because I suppose with a project, like, if they're working at home by nearly osmosis, parents will see what's happening as well. So I think that's a big part. And then maybe a knock on then if there was a fundraiser, irrespective of what amount of money,
that's
but
not the
awareness,
issue.
yes,
it's
awareness,
and kids get into something. You can get kids tuned into something like that, like
at
15 or 16 years of age. I think it's vital.
And I think what Paddy said then about the age and the difference between once you go over the 18, then we'll say when I suppose you can maybe make the decision yourself if you can, as you said, if you can get in between 12 and 18, that point.
And then it's in the back of your head, because once you're screened, then you know what it's about, so it's important. But once you pass 18, it's difficult. It is difficult.
But the piece around, I think Paddy was asking about the fear that someone will have that they'll be told you can't play again. Are there many situations like that?
No.
Okay.
I know of one situation.
Okay.
It's ongoing at the minute. They cannot play at the minute. Now, they might play in 6 or 8 months' time, but they're waiting for procedure and they can't play. But generally, people come back and play. I'd say 99% of them go back and play. Now, we were also told that if Dillon lived, he'd never played again.
Okay.
He wouldn't have played.
That would have been fair hard on him.
It'd been terrible hard on Dillon. It'd be terrible. Like, that would be terrible for him. But the reason being, he couldn't play. If he was to get into a car and drive down the road, it could have happened to him. So, like, it could have been anybody's life could have been in danger. It could have been one. If he'd ever had kids, God bless him, running up and down the garden, it could happen to him. So, like, to say there was an accident waiting to happen, now we know it was. But as you say, it would have been broke his heart if he couldn't play sport. Any young fella that loves sport,
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, go on.
And I know you mentioned earlier on, but my counselling background as well, and I can imagine someone in that situation would need a lot of support and counselling and work to help them to cope with not being able to play the sport. It would be a massive sense of loss for someone, I'm sure.
Massive sense of loss,
Because I suppose we spoke with another guest about, I suppose, the sense of belonging that can come with sport as well. So I think that's a very interesting point.
It is so important. Like, it's like, no matter what sport you play, you want your kids playing sport, and I think preferably team sport if you can at all, because it's such great for friendships. It lasts forever. Like, it's so good for kids mentally and physically. Like, and I suppose you probably find it difficult in schools. I mean, I'm just a quick question. Like, are all kids playing some kind of sport in school or some kind of exercise? It's not the way it is.
No.
Participatorship is not.
We just did a podcast there, recorded a podcast earlier there, and we were just talking about fundamental movement skills and the amount of kids nowadays that don't do any kind of physical activity at all.
Because of the Xbox and the television.
Yeah.
And it's probably larger than you even would imagine.
I think it's life in general is a big thing. Like when we were growing up, hurling, football, every kind of sport possible. Do you know?
Yeah.
And there was no such thing as, well, there was when I got older, but Xbox and all that wasn't there.
No.
You know, you get cycle your bike into town and you go
That's
playing
it.
hurling or football,
That's
and
it,
that's
which
it.
was
Like,
great.
and I suppose in my life, my mum was at home. She was a housewife, and dad was going out to work, and mum was there to drive you to training. But life has gone so busy now for people where
It's difficult.
it's different times. Like,
But it's a
you know,
battle for you guys in school, so to
Yeah.
get that across, like.
Yeah, it is, and I'm thinking of those kids, those students that wouldn't be screened through their club. You know, that definitely looking at it.
School, yeah.
School would
school
be
is a big thing. I see in our own school now they're trying to get kids into doing the testing, we'll say the fitness testing, and try and encourage them to do whatever amount of meters walking and stuff like that, and the steps up, and
Okay.
that's what we're trying to do at the moment. Like,
Good to see that.
you know,
How much, Dan, does family history play? Do you notice from the screening? Like, would people have, typically, is there a family history, or
Not necessarily,
not
no.
necessarily,
No,
no.
and certainly not in our case.
Yeah.
But we were also told afterwards that Dillon could be the start of the gene.
Okay.
So he could have his kids in the future, because we were all checked after it and where everything was okay.
Yeah.
So that's not the case you think with family history.
Yeah.
You'd imagine it might have something to do, but in our case, no, and generally no.
Yeah, because I was just thinking there are families might go, well, look, we've no history of heart condition,
So
but
there's no
that-
issue.
No,
It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. No,
right.
no. And there's so many complications, obviously, with the heart, but there's so many different problems that can arise within the heart. Like you could have, there's hundreds of different problems you can have with the heart that we weren't aware of, or most people are not aware of.
Yeah.
So, like, even with our screening, you could find diabetes, high blood pressure, and there's been quite a few high blood pressure with young teenagers that you'd be amazed about, and diabetes, and different. So it's not just heart issues. As I said, it could be diabetes, and it can be high blood pressure and other issues, which is good to hear as well. So it's not just on the heart, you know.
That's I suppose it's inspirational for the time of grief, like the amount of work that has been put into the foundation as well.
Yeah, it is. But I go back to saying when you involve yourself with good people, you have a great chance of success in anything in life.
Yeah.
And we're so lucky that the people we have working for us voluntary are great. And we'll be doing different stuff as the years goes on. But like, we hope to have a stand at the ploughing match this year, and we probably need volunteers to help us. And there's different fundraisers that we do need volunteers to help, like, but the fundraising has been amazing. We just need people to keep going with that.
Yeah, and I suppose the awareness as well about the
But that's-
volunteerism as well.
That's
is
it,
more,
like. So when people fundraise, they're aware, like.
Yeah.
So
but
like,
even the thing I'm getting from today is like, it's not just, it's every sport, it's every activity. Like, so there's smaller clubs out there, like gymnastics, for example.
absolutely,
Do you know, like think how strenuous that
Yeah.
gymnastics,
Yeah.
it's a physical thing.
every sport.
Even golf.
That's true.
When you think about it, like
Yeah.
there's like, everyone should be screened. Like,
It should be screened, yeah. And we've
Everyone-
been on to golf now to do it as well, like.
everyone
So,
should be screened. It's
yeah.
not just
Yeah.
you're kind of thinking just because Dylan is associated with GA, you think every GA, but it's everyone. Like.
Oh, everyone, yeah, it's everybody.
Every-
And I think as well, listen to what you're saying about the season he had played and the intensity he played at. And I think, again, in my head, I thought, well, if you're playing at that intensity, surely it would have showed up something sooner.
That's exactly it.
But no.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Like.
yeah, it
It's
is. isn't it?
it's a secret killer.
Yeah, it's a secret killer.
Yeah.
And adrenaline does affect it, actually, adrenaline.
Okay.
So when your adrenaline is high, your heart is doing extra work.
Okay.
Which is logical, I suppose, when you look at it. But we weren't aware of that, you know.
But I think the point you made as well, like, it could have happened. It could have happened in the case. It could have happened at any time.
It could, thanks be to God it didn't happen. And look, Rowan,
Yeah.
I could be driving back now after this, like, back home, and to come into my head, and it just gets you, like, because when I see a picture, I want to give him a hug or a kiss or shake his hand or have a chat with him, and that'll never happen again. But that's the way it is. But you're right, it hits you at the strangest of times. And sister was in America doing a J1. She wasn't around at that time. She had to wait to come home. And maybe that wasn't a bad thing, because it was really, really difficult. And maybe that was supposed to be, I don't know, while his sister Shannon's a radiographer. And Shannon was there on the night, and she worked really, really hard to get him back. But she was able to do that, while others mightn't. And then saying that the girls are good now, they're moving on because they have to move on. And they've got two great boyfriends, Owen and Ronan, and 2 great kids. So it's great that they're in that state. Like, so it's left, I suppose, to Hazel and myself to try and do as much as we can for the foundation and to help others. But it's great to help others. It's a great feeling that you can help people.
And like, for people going through grief at the moment, and I suppose ultimately we all go through grief at different times in our life, but have you any advice? I know certainly the work you've done, I'm sure, has helped, but is there any other advice you could give to people?
Yeah, I tell you, it's funny enough, the poor Sullivan family went through with Michael, the jockey there.
Yeah.
I was in Cork and I came back by the house and I met his 2 aunts and his grandmother, and we spoke for 15 minutes, and they were so thankful that I called. But I suppose it's talking to people. It really is talking to people. I mean, I went to counsellor after Dillon passed, for one session, maybe a month after he passed, but it didn't do anything for me, to be honest. And I'm not saying counselling is great for some people, but it didn't work for me. But I suppose when I had the foundation, it was great for me. But
But you're doing your talking through.
I suppose I am. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so it's a form. It's a different form.
It's
a different form of counselling.
But for you then to reach out to Mike's family, the connection between people who know
I've reached out to many, and many have reached out to me, which is great. Because funny enough, we had parents that came to the funeral that had lost children and said to us, "Your lives will never be the same again." Which is not really what you want to hear, to be honest. And they were being honest, but you have got to try and first of all, you've got to look after the people who are still here. So if we were to continue, if your head is focused on Dillon the whole time, we've got 2 beautiful daughters, and you've got to look after them. And that's one bit of advice a lady said to us. She'd lost 2 children, and she had 12 in the family. And she says, when they sat down for dinner, she sat down 2 places of the people that were gone. And she said, I made a big mistake. I was always focusing on the 2 that were gone instead of focusing on the people that were here. It's a good story, while it's great to do what we can for Dillon, but you must focus on the people that are around. Because I'd say it would bring you down if you didn't, It's very important to do that.
I know I've often heard people say that a funeral is for the living, not for those who have died. So I suppose in the same way,
that's exactly
look after those who are here.
You must look after those who are here.
Yeah, it can help with your grief.
It does, of course. And another thing too, guys, everybody deals with grief differently. Like Hazel goes to the grave maybe once a week, to Dillon's grave, and it does her good and she enjoys it. Well, I won't say enjoys it, but she feels she gets something from it. Well, I would go maybe once a month or once every 6 weeks because it brings me down when I go there. So I don't do that. I don't need to do that, But again, we're all different, and we all deal with grief differently.
And I suppose there are times though when it probably ambushes you or takes you.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're on your own.
Yeah.
I could be driving back now after this, back home, and to come into my head, and it just gets you, because when I see a picture, I want to give him a hug or a kiss or shake his hand or have a chat with him, and that'll never happen again. But that's the way it is. But you're right, it hits you at the strangest of times. And I try to blank it out now, which mightn't be the right thing to do, but it's what I try to do.
I just think it's massive what you're doing now. You're trying to stop someone else feeling the way you feel.
Yeah, ultimately that's what you're trying to do. That's what you're trying to do.
That's what it's all about. You're just.
But I have to say that it's amazing when you meet people that want to help, all over the country. It's just amazing, and outside of the country. We're over in Chicago in November. We're asked over to speak at an Ireland Funds Due, the Irish and American. There was 500 at, and I spoke, but the people are just amazing after it. The Irish people are great, no matter where they are. And the GA connection was great, but it was also, we had rugby and soccer over there. Jamie Hislop came over to me after it and thanked me for doing what we were doing, and it gives us great power to keep going.
But I'd imagine that comes from your ability to connect with people and
maybe so, maybe, but to be honest, it's an easy story. It's very easy to connect with people because all you're doing is telling it as it is. It's out there what it is and it's.
With your honesty, even just from listening.
I hope so.
Even so, I suppose something I picked up there in the last couple of minutes, but I think it's important as well to identify that everyone grieves in their own way.
Absolutely.
You can feel that you should be doing it this way or you should be going here.
Like Hazel and myself, we deal with it differently. And that's the way possibly it is. Maybe it's the way it should be. But
it's so true because my mum died, she was only 52, but I can see myself and my 3 sisters, I would have dealt with it totally different and Des would know that. I'd be kind of get up and get on with it, kind of keep driving, and the girls are kind of different to me.
Absolutely.
One of my sisters would have went to the grave every day of the week nearly. Do you know?
Yeah.
But that was her way of dealing with it.
That was her way of dealing with it,
Do you know?
Then it was Cormac McNallen, was that the same cause of death for him as well?
Yeah, I reached out to Cormac McNallen's. Would you believe that Cormac McNallen's dad died 2 days after Dillon passed?
Okay.
And I spoke to his mum maybe a week or 2 later. And they set up the Cormac Trust. And they actually they did it for 20 years. It only finished there early last year. But they did great work up north. they went the route with defibrillators to get into as many different clubs as possible, but they did serious work, like. And I'm supposed to meet his brother now sometime soon, but yeah, they did great work, and because he was probably the first big name that happened to like. What a great player, like at 24 as well. What a great player, yeah.
But you see even the professional players like Christian Eriksen and you know,
the American footballer.
Yeah.
It's amazing, yeah. And they were the lucky ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I suppose the Christian Eriksen story gives hope to a young person who might be diagnosed with something that you still can get back on the pitch.
And there's another guy from West Ham who's back playing. I think he's back playing this week. It happened to him about 6 months ago. Yeah, so look, they're the good stories. And
there's a Luton Town lad, isn't there?
That's correct.
Yeah, I can't think of his name now.
But it goes back to your earlier question about, you know, we can be reluctant to find out in case. So I think it's important to highlight the story. I suppose the stories like
correct. You don't urge parents that it's so important to get it done. And the procedure is very invasive. It's not very invasive. You know, it's a very simple procedure. So there's nothing to be afraid of, like as a kid, and with plenty of stories. And
I just kind of want to mention then as well, I suppose, was Dillon was not just a county man or county man, he was third CBS man. So
it was brilliant.
They would have been very proud there when they won the Harty.
It was great, it was mighty.
And Niall Cahill mentioned, like, you can just see the
emotion in
Niall, just how much it meant to him. I see myself, like, we've had one of the lads on our team, his family would have suffered a bit over the last couple of years with an accident, and it's just deep down in me, I just wanted him to lift the trophy. It was just like, I want him to lift the trophy, you know, as well as the rest of the team, but for him in particular, just lift the trophy.
That's lovely.
And you could see it in Niall how much it meant to him that he didn't want to mention to the players, but he had Niall or he had Dillon in his head all the way through it.
Yeah, the last time one of Dillon was playing, but you're right, he did. I'd urge anyone to look it up, because it's a lovely few words. You could feel the emotion, couldn't you, what he was doing? It was great. To win a Harty is mighty, like
massive,
and to win my G1 in Clonmel was great too, with the high school.
Yeah, and look, I suppose twas when I met Dan first last year, it was kind of Mikey Breen obviously is involved with me in school and the team, and Mikey would have been on that holiday.
Yes,
with
great
Dillon,
for the Dillons,
it obviously hit Mikey very hard as well, and we said, what can we do to try and promote the Dillon Quirke Foundation? And our sponsors, PHP, then decided to come on board, and our new jerseys then would have had the Dillon's, as you were saying there, Pat, about the symbol, and it was for us last week, 2 weeks ago, we won the Munster B Championship in school, the Barty as they call it, and it kind of meant a lot to have Dillon's helmet on it there, and the Dillon Quirke Foundation. So Dan, that jersey is for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
High school jersey.
Appreciate it. I love that.
You can
mind
that.
Up in a good spot.
And hopefully we'll be a Harty Cup team next year and wearing the jerseys.
It'll be great for you, It'll be great.
And I know, like, when you mentioned about Dillon being on your shoulder, like the impact he's having continuously, isn't it incredible?
Oh, absolutely, and anybody that knows him, he was a great character. Great character. Loved fun, and we travelled all over the world to watch. We actually went, so we're big United fans. We're Munster fans, United fans, Irish fans. And we in 2017, Dillon and myself went to the Lions in New Zealand for 3 weeks, and it was just amazing. And you know, the kind of fella Dillon was, he'd mix with anybody. The first night we were over there, we met 5 guys from Scotland. They were Rangers supporters, and they were in their 70s. Now we're Celtic supporters, I guess, you know, but they started talking. And we were there for 21 nights, and we had dinner from 18 or to 21. And they were in their 70s. But they were telling us the great stories, and Dillon was telling about the G and the fact you get no money paid for the G, and they couldn't get over it. But he had a great time with them, and they were in their 70s. So the way he was, Dillon, he'd probably over 7 or 70.
Even the stories, he going into the neighbours with and food and all.
That's right, he was great. He was great. Himself and the buddies actually. They had a bit of a bear going to the back of a van but used to come around. Some very funny stories. They were very good. Charlie wanted a bit of fun, but the way he was, though, he was able to flick a switch and get serious, like when he was training or playing. And he was very progressive when he did. He had his own apartment in Cashel and his own house in Thurles. And funny enough, we were going in for planning the Monday after he passed. Next door to us, he was going building his own house there. But thankfully, his sister now is that, so it was nice to have that. But he knew what he wanted to do, but he could have the fun, and he could click the switch on and get serious if he needed to be, you know.
You have great memories of the trip and various things that you've done.
Great, when Munster won the Heineken Cup in 08. 6 or 08, Dillon was 8, so it was his first. We used to go to the Munster matches, like the two of us, and many others. Yeah, so he was in the Millennium Stadium and they won that. And he travelled. I said we used to go to Old Trafford 2 or 3 times a year, and we were in the UK with Munster. We were season ticket holders in Munster as well. So we had great fun. I'm delighted to have spent 24 brilliant years with him. And the nice thing to say is that we never had bad word with each other.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It is, yeah.
It really
They're all
is.
positive,
Yeah.
Thank you to have that.
And I know you mentioned the jockey as well, but it reminds me of the clip, the priest said last night, I saw it in the news about the 24 years he lived the life
so
or two.
much.
Yeah,
he did achieve so much. He rode a horse for us in Clonmel one day, actually. Michael was a gentleman, a lovely young man. Lovely young man. Great family.
Yeah, and I think the stories you're...
Similar, yeah. There'll be similar stories. I heard his dad speak, and he spoke beautifully on the pulpit yesterday about his son and the legacy he had left, and that they were going to continue to kick on, which is great to hear, Great to hear these stories.
Yeah. So thanks so much for your time. I think I suppose any guest, and particularly this, we've learned so much about various, and particularly about the foundation. I just jotted down there, I suppose it struck me, like 10,000 screenings, 240 of those screenings, there was something showed up, and some insight for families and individuals there as well. So it's incredible work as well. And I suppose I might just finish, we'll say, about if to get involved in the Dillon Quirke Foundation or
just contact, go onto the website info@dillonquirkefoundation.com. And if you'd like to fundraise, or would like to help us on it, we'd be delighted. Because we'll get involved in fundraising, we'll go and we'll talk, we need to talk, and we'll get more awareness out there. So as important as we said, our lads, about fundraising, awareness is more important. And that's been built steadily, and it's growing all the time, so we're delighted with that.
And we usually call on the Minister for Education every podcast, so maybe we'll call on Helen again, that maybe it's something she should look into.
100%. It'd be great, lads, pump the money into something like that. Well, exactly, so the garden sheds are...
Yeah, we're always looking for money to offer them, so which is
very hard to get it off the dust.
But I think that's a great point as well. Like, imagine if this happened in every school.
Well, that's where we're going to start now, so that we'll be going out with that now. We'll be
I think it's definitely something could be...
The lives that could be saved.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and get young kids involved. They're the people we need involved.
It's saving lives, but saving grief.
And spreading awareness and all of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So thanks so
a
much.
million,
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a million.
And tip for the All-Ireland as well.
We'll
Sorry, Pat, I had to get that in there.
We'll gloss over that for the time being as well. So, and thanks a million to our sponsors as well. Stakelums, we'll say Work, Learn, Play in Thurles. We had a great night there before Christmas as well. And thanks a million to Sham here in One Real Studios.